It's Monday. Let's talk about some setups for this week. Unsurprisingly, going to start off with a bang. ETH and BTC both are reaching potentially a peak for their respective trends here. Now, BTC has strongly outperformed ETH since October. That's kind of how I frame this. Kind of see that on the alligator MAs here, the 5, 8, and 13 moving average. The reason I'm watching both of these extremely closely is because if Bitcoin reverses trend here, which is potentially going to happen over the next week, it's going to be a bloodbath for everything else, including ETH. Right now, the stop losses for BTC and ETH are around 18 and 560. If we get a daily close below 18 for BTC, it's probably over for a while for crypto. Because if we break 18, we probably break 16. If we break 16, we probably go to 12 and 13. Like, that's just how it's going to work. This is going to cascade. Most likely, the M double top is going to complete. Then you're going to see some stupid low targets beyond that. So let's hope that doesn't happen. But it's important to be abreast of the potential situation. So thus far, trend has looked great. If we look at these fractals, these are essentially trailing stops. And basically, you're kind of out at this level here. And then it's your decision whether or not you re-enter up here based on this fractal, just using this specific set of indicators. So right now you're either 100% out or you're partially in, is how I read this situation here. Looking at ETH, you actually never got a re-entry, and you never got an exit, actually. You never hit the stop loss here, because here's a trailing stop. Here's a trailing stop, and there's going to be another one that prints around 561. So it's either 561 to close it all, or 630 to add or open along from there. So the read here is definitely bullish. However, there's an expectation of a mean reversion coming sooner rather than later. And if I look at the cloud, again, BTC on the right, ETH on the left, there's an expectation that price will eventually tap this red line throughout any given trend. So it's been almost 3 months, 2 months plus, since it's retraced, mean reverted to the red line here to the Kijun. So it's definitely overdue for a mean reversion, which will undoubtedly bring headlines, bloodbath, margin calls. You know, it's going to get, this is like what, a 30% drop or something like that. If that does happen, it's honestly for the best. It's a bullish dump because it brings people in. All the naysayers will get back on the bandwagon, that sort of thing. ETH, on the other hand, on the daily has already tapped its Kijun and bounced from there. Like, so we want this, but on BTC eventually. So it's hard to say like how to predict this for ETH because the retrace for BTC is going to be 20 to 30%, whereas ETH, it's not anywhere near that. But I think 500 is a pretty good psychological support on the way down. But overall, it's definitely a wait-and-see game. I mean, if we look at the 50 and the 200 for both pairs, it's kind of even worse as far as mean reversion. You know, ETH hasn't tapped the 200 on the daily since it started, since the Golden Cross in May. It's just been straight up. And BTC, it got close in September, but definitely hasn't even touched the 50 throughout most of October, November. So again, if I'm looking for bids, asks, that sort of situation, you're either already short or hedged here with a stop loss at higher highs, or you're waiting for a long with a stop limit entry at higher highs. This is for both cases, BTC and ETH. You've got bids at the Kijun in both cases, potentially on margin, potentially just on spot. You know, there's multiple ways to play this. Maybe you're even straddling this with options where you're kind of long and short at the same time, that sort of thing. And the stops are pretty tight for both cases, so I can see how that's a viable strategy here. The only way that gets destroyed is if we just go sideways and you just eat the funding. But bids on the Kijun is definitely always a viable strategy. And then, you know, if things get nuts, the 200 daily EMA is quite a ways down for BTC. You know, that's basically the previous local high at around 12.5. I don't think that there's an expectation that we get there. I mean, it's going to take something catastrophic, maybe some news catalyst or something, but I don't think that's the expectation, certainly. Probably a retest of the 50 at the very least, though, for BTC and for ETH. So 500 for ETH, 16.2 maybe for BTC, something like that. And then I also want to highlight band, because there are a lot of charts that look like band on alts right now. So this is the daily chart. I like this because for the long side, because it's got a multi-shouldered head and shoulders. There's clearly local highs and extreme low with, or sorry, local lows with an extreme low, and then local lows again, matching previous local lows. So this is a type of Head and Shoulders. Maybe not exact, but good enough, I think. Volume doesn't necessarily agree with that. It's not exactly declining, but it's not exactly popping up all over the place either. So I like the pattern. Volume's okay. What I mainly like about this is this edge-to-edge move for the cloud. So it's got a bullish TK cross already. Once it breaks inside of the cloud, which has been for several days now, there's an expectation it'll reach for the other side of the cloud at around 11, with a stop loss at the Kijun here. So you're out below 580, and you are closing the long at around 11, something like that. As far as the risk reward, that's a pretty decent setup. The inverted Head and Shoulders measured move and 1618 fib agrees with 11 as well. 1011 somewhere in there. 2618 is at 12. So that would be more than you expect, certainly. More than I would expect out of the move. At a bare minimum, I'd expect 11 as far as the edge-to-edge move here. But overall, this looks good. With most cloud trades, reversal trades like this, you're going to see a chart pattern to add to that confluence. So this isn't exactly a surprise here. So Band USD looks good. I think it's important to also look at the alt ETH charts, because most people who are entering this DeFi stuff are selling ETH for Band in this case. And even the Band ETH chart has a decent edge-to-edge setup that has not triggered yet. In order for this to trigger, you want to see price inside of the cloud with a bullish TK cross. But nonetheless, it's setting up. And arguably there's some sort of double bottom here. You know, whatever this is about to be, it's worth watching. What you don't want to see is another descending triangle here, because it's kind of setting up for that as well. So I like this on the USD pair, mediocre on the ETH pair. But it's important to watch that, because if you're selling ETH for something else that's not going to outperform, like, what's the point, right? This is where it kind of gets interesting in the analysis. And then if you take all this, what I said about Band, and you look at all the other charts, that are Kava's a similar one, Bancor is a similar one. So if you look at all those, and you look at, you know, BTC and ETH, and you're like, well, if BTC retraces 15, 20, 30%, you know, what's going to happen to Band? Probably nothing good. So definitely a bit of a tightrope walk this week for trading setups. Very much a waiting game. Very much a looking to see who makes the first move. You know, the ultimate bamboozle shenanigans would be for ETH to make new lows, stop run a bunch of people, and then make it for higher highs. Same thing with BTC. I mean, that'd be the ultimate volatility move into the middle month. But you can believe that everybody's watching this right here. The stops are obvious, which means they'll probably get run. The highs are obvious, which means prepare for whipsaw, prepare for Darth Maul lightsaber, you know, wicks on both sides. It's setting up for just a massive volatility event here. That's going to be extremely hard to trade. So be careful. Use low leverage. This isn't trading advice though, right? This is educational information. I'm just sharing potential setups here on this setup of the week.